Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to Looking Ahead. Can you believe it's already episode 7? Today, we're looking, is post rotation finally shaking up? We've got some of the results from the new set, and Jet Energy is definitely everyone's favorite card in the set. So without further ado, let's look at this week's good decks, which are doing well in the City League. As you can see, a lot of new positions in a way with certain decks. And the big thing you're probably seeing is Rapid Strike box is finally left, but Arceus Duraludon has taken 4% of the top 8 meta, which is a big surprise, which I've really noticed that Arceus decks have really slowing towards the Arceus Pikachu Giratina, which I showed on my channel last week, and Arceus Duraludon, which I will show some lists later on, but it's really interesting to see this is coming back with Jet Energy being an incredibly powerful special energy, as well as Lugia. Duraludon could be in a really good place. Miraidon is finally slipping down a little bit in its percentage, whereas Lost Box and Giratina, or both of them together, have finally gained a decent ground, being about 30% of the meta. A little bit different from last week, where Tina was a bit smaller of percentage-wise, and whereas Lugia was a much larger percentage. But Lugia is finally creeping down a bit, and Gardevoir is increasing a little bit as well. Lost Box being nearly 20% does make a lot of sense because of the Jet Energy that's just being released. So all in all, nothing too surprising about what the current top 8 percentage looks like of decks. But has this affected the winning lists? Now, these are only the results from the new set. This isn't including Monday and Thursdays, which is normally what I include, but it did include some of Friday's one. And yes, Gardevoir has finally entered the top 6 decks which are winning, and Arceus box I've taken away. So Comfy and Lost Box are back again, number 1 deck, which is doing really, really well and winning. Weirdly, a lot of the decks that it won, it also came second in. So it's kind of quite funny, the tournaments that it is also doing really well in both sort of participants for it. Mew has gone up by 2 places, being second place. Mew didn't really gain any new tools. It's just really, really strong and incredibly powerful. But Gardevoir has entered the fray by being the 3rd best deck of this weekend. Now, Gardevoir is an incredibly strong card, an incredibly strong deck, as it did come second place in the biggest tournament a couple of weeks back, which we discussed on this channel. And also, it's just incredibly a good versatile card. We are focusing more on the list going to the Zacians and the Gardevoirs, like the smaller ones, as a good attackers, kind of like where people are going towards with Gardevoir. But we are seeing some creativity going back to the Mewtwo builds. But really, those are the only 2 builds right now. Now, Miraidon has finally fallen a little bit. It's been in the top 3 for a very long time. It's gone down to 4th. And I will talk about Miraidon because Miraidon decks are actually changing to focus more on having Flying Pikachu to really help with that Lost Box matchup, and also to kind of slow down the opponent's side if they are mainly basics. Lugia again has gone down, but Lugia is still just as powerful. It did gain Jet Energy, but that's really about it from what the new set it did actually add for it. But it's still performing well and actually beaten Giratina, which is a very, very big surprise. But Giratina falling down to the 6th spot. Now, if we added Arceus Giratina, Giratina's numbers will be actually up by 2, so it would get to the 3rd spot. But we're not including that. We are focusing primarily on the actual archetypes of what it is. And I always find with Arceus, it's pretty much its own separate one, where more of them are going towards having Pikachu in it. Whereas I feel like with Giratina, they just as its attacker of its own, focus mainly in the Lost Box. So nothing really too surprising except Gardevoir has it come in, and a lot of decks have kind of fallen down. No real big increases except Mew. So really, let's have a look at some of these fun new lists. So again, these are from the tournaments that have happened, and this is a Meowscarada that got top 4. Really interesting and really nice to see. Having a 3-1-3 line, very different to what I thought it would be. I would probably go with like a 4-1-4 or 4-1-3 to kind of like prioritize and not getting these KO'd by the Sprigatitos quite early, but using Lilligant as an attacker. But as you can look at this list, It's very much focused on really slowing down the opponent. It runs Miltank and 3 Klefkis. So I'm guessing from the idea on this board state is you want to have Miltanks or Klefkis in the active spot, Meowscaradas on the bench, and do loads of bench sniping to try and rack up a lot of damage. And then Lilligant or Meowscarada can be really good attackers late game. The Bibarel is a really good draw engine, and Drapion is really powerful as an attacker late game or early game, depending if you're against Mew or even against Gardevoir if you just power it up bit by bit with Gardenia. Now, Radiant Alakazam, I really, really like. Way to just move some damage counters from, I believe it's your side to your opponent's side. It's really, really strong. It's kind of like doing some more spread damage, which could help attack with Meowscarada's main attack. It does also run the, I think it's Turffield, the new stadium, which just search your deck for a basic Pokemon which isn't got a rule box and put it down on your bench. All in all, this is a really interesting style list. Using Chorus as the main draw, we are really seeing that as a more common sort of draw engine in the supporter in these style of decks. But this is one of the best placing Meowscaradas. Meowscarada did actually do pretty well. Did get I think, 2 more top 4s and 1 top 8. One of them did include Kricketune, and the other one included Arceus. So mainly using Arceus as an attacker because Arceus can't power up Meowscarada. So I'm a big fan of Meowscarada, and I'm good to see that it is getting these positions. And this one seems very interesting, using the Klefkis and Miltanks as walls, where you can then attack and do loads of bench sniping, and then go into big attackers near at the end of the game. So all in all, I'm a big fan of this Meowscarada and hope it can see some more improvement. Now let's talk about Reggies. Yes, Reggies has somehow got a few placements because of some new cards. Obviously, the Luminous Energy, which is our new Rainbow Energy, but it accounts as every single energy you have with it. But if any other special energy is attached to it, it is a colorless energy. So basically, you want to have this plus 2 basic energies, then it will work. But if you have that plus gift energy, it will counter out and just be a colorless energy. And you run, again, like I said, the new stadium, which allows you to search your deck for a basic and put on your bench. A perfect card for this Reggies. Also, it was quite fun because these are this person's exact list. He runs one of each copy of the full art research, which I'm a big fan of. So nothing is too surprising. This they do run 2 of each of the Reggies, except 3 of the Dragos, but 1 of the, you could say, quote unquote bad Drago, but it hits your big attacker doing 240 damage. Only runs 2 Miriams, but you do run 1 Power Pad, so you could total it up to go to 4, and a lot more energy search and Ultra Balls to try and get the energies in discard pile as quick as possible. Hence why you're really prioritizing research early on to get the basic energies or any energies in the discard pile, using Ultra Ball as well to get the Pokemon plus discarding the energies. But yeah, I like Reggies. I don't know where I can see it really positioned right now in the meta. Like, it did get a top 4, and I believe there was another top 8 position this weekend. So people are playing Reggies. Some of them are focusing on the Luminous Energies, but everyone is focusing on the brand new stadium, which is so good for Reggies. I think the deck, because it only has only shuffle Pokemon in, is Miriam, which could be quite detrimental. Like, you have to play a supporter, so you have to have that in your hand. You can't run like 4 Ordinary Rod like you did right now in this current format. So I do think it is good. You do have Shauna as well. So I just noticed a Shauna as well. No, Shauna, Serena. But yeah, this is a very interesting Reggies list. Definitely could see why Reggies could be as powerful as it can be, but I don't think it's going to be as strong. I know I kind of just counteracted each other, but all in all, I do think this is an interesting list. So next one is Zorrock V-Star, which did actually pick up 2 wins. And as you can see here, it has a Luminous Energy and Jet Energy in this list. A really, really interesting combination because the Luminous Energy helps you attack with your Zapdos, and also technically Yveltal as well. But not really at all. But you mainly use Zapdos because it's really good with Zapdos, because you will struggle incredibly with Miraidon or Arceus builds or anything which potentially has a fighting weakness. So Zapdos can be that answer to that Miraidon, which this deck can really struggle against. It does play the 4/4 and then obviously 3 Gengar, which you make kind of sense. But I do like it plays the Jirachi, the one where you can flip 2 coins, and if both are heads, the opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out. Or the ability where when this Pokemon is knocked out, you get to search your deck for 3 cards, I believe. Or is it 2? I think it is 3. So this is a very generic looking Zorrock list. Nothing too crazy except the Luminous Energy and the Jet Energy. I really like Jet Energy in this list. The way to just do, if a Pokemon gets stuck in the active, you, for example, say they just boss up a Gengar or even a Zap or a not Zapdos or any of the barrels, these big high retreat Pokemon, you can just jet up your Dunsparce, retreat, and then attack again with Zorrock. So it's a really good switching out, despite you just running 1 escape rope. Capturing Aroma I really like because it is your only way to get the evolution Pokemon besides Ultra Ball and Great Ball. But yeah, it's a fun sort of style deck. I'm really glad to see Zorrock is kind of coming back a bit, getting 2 wins. So if they got 3 or more wins, I know it says 2 more wins, it could have potentially made the top 6 decks of the week, which would have been very, very fun to talk about Zorrock V-Star again. So I'm very happy to see this come out. Having the, not Giratina, having the Evotoll to really help against your Lugia matchup is really strong. So I think Zorrock might finally have its moment because of Jet Energy, and the Luminous Energy can really open up some avenues. But as this is a special energy focus list, I'm not too sure if that is the right way around it. But anyway, this is a fun style list to really still think about. And yes, I've talked about it at the start, Arceus Duraludon. This is one of the winning lists. It did in fact take down 2 City Leagues. So that is incredible to think. Everyone thought this deck would be dead because we're saying goodbye to the good Duraludon V. Now we've got the Dragon single strike one, but it is finally doing well. And I think it's in a really good position. Like I said, there's a huge special energy demand right now in nearly every deck again now, especially Jet Energy, like boosting its way up to other lists, and also Lugia being incredibly strong as well as Mew, though Mew can attack through it, but Duraludon is in a good situation. You can see there is a high count of each sort of one. Still running the 2-3 Duraludon because you have single strike Mustard. You do run a Karen as well as the Scrolls. You have other different like attacks, which is really strong. 6 stadiums, which are really, really kind of quite very high, I've just realized. I know Crystal Cave is really strong, but also having Tower of Darkness, Tower of Darkness, so you can get some extra draw is nice. But yeah, I just noticed that's a very high number, not playing Collapse or even Lost City, which is very interesting. But again, nothing out of the ordinary, especially with the Colress, the boss, 3 bosses, so you can always try and get the knockouts because Duraludon hits so hard. And you have Arceus V-Star with the Star Power, Star Birth ability, which is so incredibly powerful to set up your board state. And Echoing Horn, I really like to get those cheeky KOs, especially teaming up with Boss. And also you have Judge as well for some disruption. It's fun to see Arceus Duraludon has somehow survived post-rotation. So this is something I'm really excited to see potentially evolve. But I don't know, this could be the next Rapid Strike box where it is one of those decks which is always going to be around, but not going to be as powerful. But I don't know why, but this weekend, everyone just popped off with Arceus Duraludon. So I did touch upon that Miraidon EX is kind of changing, and this is another winning list. And as you can see, it runs a 1/1 Flying Pikachu. Now, Flying Pikachu, I really like. I know I keep saying I really like some cards, but I think this is a really strong answer to your Lost Box matchup, to also your, sometimes if Reggies is around, this is really helpful into that, and any other basic Pokemon. Potentially even itself, like Miraidon, forcing them to go with their other Flying Pikachus or Reggies, VMAX. But the issue is with this Flying Pikachu is because you've added Pikachu in this, you cut away some synergy for other ones. Your Miraidon counters out 3, and your Reggies is now a 3-2 line. You could potentially boost it up a bit, like you could cut Colress or even a Judge and go to a high count of the Pokemon, but then you've got to increase your support, your search to get them. So it is a bit of a full list, but majority of Miraidon EX players are going towards Flying Pikachu to help with that Lost Box matchup because of how powerful Lost Box really have become, definitely in the last few weeks since it won in Japan. But apart from that, nothing too much has changed. They do run the double turbo, but teaming up with Electromagnet and also the flapping engine, you can get to it, potentially turn 2 with ease. So yeah, This is definitely a very interesting ride on EX. You should really consider, especially when post rotation is nearly a month nearly a month away. So definitely consider flying Pikachu in your Miraidon. We will be seeing a brilliant increase of this in the next few weeks, as Japan's meta is always going to be evolving. And remember, we do have one huge, more big tournament before we have our post rotation. And I thought we'd finish off by looking at the big baddie themselves, Lost Zone. This is the winning list, which did include Jet Energy. Now, there were, as you saw, 6 winning lists, and this is one of the lists which I think is really interesting because of the high count of water energy. So you can really kind of like get the use of Greninja to get in the discard as quick as possible and potentially even attack with Luminion, which is good. There is a high count of of these 2 prize attackers, but playing Skysteel Stone is incredibly strong by getting those 3 to 4 prizes potentially, which can be absolutely game-changing for Lost Box. And like I said, nothing is incredibly out of the ordinary here. You do run 1 less recycler, but you play a higher count of energy. But having Jet Energy and also the Turffield Stadium, I don't think it's Turffield. I believe Turffield was actually a stadium back in Sword and Shield era. Arizona, I believe. Not Arizona, that's a state. But anyway, the Windmill one, which is incredibly slow frame rate. You play that stadium, which can get any of your Lost Box attackers except your 2 prizes. It just makes this deck work so much stronger. And having a higher count of Lost Vacuum means you can just get 2 cards in a Lost Zone with very much ease because of your tool cards or even the stadium. So yeah, not going away from playing the Beach Court, which is what everyone thought, oh, this is going to be exactly what Lost Box needs the whole time, but going to have Jet Energy and a guaranteed Pokemon on the bench from this is this really strong archetype. And the support account may be a little bit low by playing only 1 boss and 1 Clara, but then 4 choruses, but it still works so well. I would have maybe added like a power pad or potentially an additional supporter, like maybe a Serena or Roxanne to help with some late game, but it is just really, really powerful. If you see the amount of 4-offs in this list, like you're just going to go incredibly fast, and Jet Energy just helps you in case someone like gets a high energy retreater in the active spot, or potentially just getting like you do your the flower selecting, and then you could just attach the energy, boost up one of your attackers into the active spot, Mirage Gate, and all of a sudden you're attacking. So yeah, nothing too much to talk about except Lost Zone is just as strong as ever. So a little bit looking ahead, I do see Jet Energy will continue to boost decks, and we will be seeing a huge increase of this card, especially in Lost Box X, and also some Giratina as well. I know that is Lost Box, but anything that includes special energies will have this Jet Energy. I do think Masquerada will continue to be a very powerful archetype, and definitely a good support. I think it will see a little bit more play. Some people are definitely still trying to work out where it goes. Some decks do take a while. Like I remember when I first saw a Lost Box list, they were going to mainly have Cramorant as the attacker with Articuno to do as much damage as possible, and then it evolved into Sablezard. So I could see Masquerada take a very slow route till we really find the right niche, whether it is like it's having loads of wall cut type attackers, or just mainly attacking with Masquerada. We will just see. And I do think there'll be a lot more Lost Box decks, and meaning there'll be a lot more techs. So we will see Flying Pikachu or Klefki or any other sort of these big answers to Lost Box to see an increase in play. So this is Looking Ahead, episode 7. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you're new, consider subscribing and leave a like. I will be back again next week with episode 8, seeing how much the meta will change, and a few days time you will see some deck profiles for some interesting decks which I think could see some play in our post rotation. So my name is TCG, and thank you for watching.